Welcome back to another episode of The Road Chose Me. And on today's episode, I'm going to cover the top 5 modifications that I made to my vehicle that really make me happy or really made a difference for my 3 years around Africa. So when I drove from Alaska to Argentina, the little Jeep that I took, it was completely stock. No modifications at all. No fridge, no fancy sleeping setup. I slept on the ground in a tent for 2 years and I had a great time. The trip was amazing, but there's no doubt that towards the end of the trip, I was a little bit sick of it, and seeing other overlanders with their fancy setups, I started to dream about some improvements and some modifications that would make my life a lot more enjoyable. And so after years of saving and planning, I built it into a reality, and that's what I have here now. And after 3 years in Africa, it's definitely been battle proven. And I want to go over the top 5 things that made the biggest difference to me and that brought me a lot of happiness. So let's get into it right now. So the number 5 modification that I really liked for my trip around Africa, and it's not something you're expecting, and it's not because of something that it did, it's actually something that it didn't do. And that modification is the rear tire carrier that I have here on the Jeep. So right here at the back, you can see I've got the spare tire and wheel, which isn't light because it's a steel wheel. I've got the extra 10 gallons of gas, which is obviously heavy when it's full. I've also got 2 max tracks, and I've got a high lift jack. Now, you can't mount all of this in the stock way on the Jeep because all of that weight would just be on the rear tailgate and you're basically going to tear it off the Jeep, especially driving 54,000 miles on corrugated roads around Africa. So the solution to that is some sort of tire carrier setup. So AEV, American Expedition Vehicles, their tire carrier is, well, it's probably the most expensive on the market, but there's no doubt about it, it's the best on the market. So it's bolted here down directly to the frame of the Jeep, so all of the weight is on the frame. It isn't actually on the rear tailgate at all. And so all of that weight is on the frame, but it's a really slick system. You don't have to move any turnbuckles or open anything else to open the back of the Jeep. It's all just slick and connected. And the reason I love it so much is because I needed this equipment. Unfortunately, it wouldn't fit inside the Jeep. Ideally it would be, but it didn't. And I couldn't fit a gas tank underneath because I have my water tank there. So it kind of was a necessary evil to have this stuff outside. And the rear tire carrier has never ever squeaked, it's never rattled, it's never malfunctioned or needed any attention. And I think for that reason alone, it's one of my favorite modifications, because when you're on a trip, when you're 10,000 miles from anywhere, you don't want to have to be modifying or improving or trying to hack together a fix on some piece of equipment. Equipment that just works is the best equipment. And so to show you how simple this is, all of this is connected, all of this is heavy right now. I can just open this with one hand. I'm using one finger and the whole system opens up like this. It's that simple, and to close it is the same. No turnbuckles, no extra swingaways. It just works, and it's been just working for almost 5 years now. For that reason, one of my favorite modifications to the Jeep. All right, my 4th favorite modification on this Jeep, it's a really simple one. It's my kitchen setup, and along with that is the fridge. And so from Alaska to Argentina, I didn't have anything like this. I was actually just cooking on the ground for every meal, and safe to say, I ate a lot of ramen noodles and a lot of tin soup. And I was a lot younger back then, and I guess I tolerated it, but I did dream of eating fresh food and cooking much better. And so that's why I came up with this kitchen setup, and that's why I really wanted a fridge. And more than just being a kitchen setup, the reason that this has been so amazing is because of how convenient it is. So I mounted all of my cutlery right here, and my stove is tucked away in this cupboard right here. And so what that means is it's really easy for me to just pull over on the side of the road and make a sandwich or make a coffee or anything like that. And that means I'm not tempted to go and buy takeaway food when it's on offer. Especially when I was driving across the US last summer a bunch of times, and especially now I'm in Canada, it's so easy, you know, you're near a town, you're like, oh, I'll just run in and get fast food. But I mean, that's expensive and it's unhealthy and it isn't really sustainable. So it's something I try to avoid as much as I can. So having a setup that's convenient, it means in my mind, I don't think, oh, it's going to be painful to like dig out the stove and get everything ready. And by the time I've barely even begun, I could just walk into Subway and get a sandwich and save time. So the goal is to have a setup that's just as convenient or maybe even more convenient than buying fast food. And this really shone through when I was at Overland Expo last year. I was camping with a bunch of friends and, you know, in the morning we're all kind of a bit sluggish and people were talking about, oh, you know, maybe let's cook up some breakfast or whatever. I'd actually already made coffee for everyone and had breakfast well on the go for 4 people before some other people had even got their cooking stove completely set up because they had such a complicated setup. They were getting things out of bags, screwing things together. And people were kind of shocked and they were like, Dan, I can't believe how easy that was. I said, yeah, that's because I optimized it because I did it literally every single day for 3 years in Africa. So when you're thinking about your kitchen setup, make it efficient, make it convenient. You don't want to have to dig around in the back and move 19 things out of the way to get to the one thing you want. No, put the things that you want right in front of you, right convenient. Chopping board, knives, stove, pots and pans are right here behind me. I can reach in 1 second and get them out. That's why I really love this modification to my Jeep. My third favorite modification to this Jeep and an improvement over my previous one is the solar panels that I have mounted on the roof. So from Alaska to Argentina, I didn't have dual batteries, I didn't have solar panels, and it worked perfectly fine. It was okay, but it was always something I was a little bit concerned about. In the evenings, if I wanted to charge my camera or charge my laptop, I kind of was always a bit stressed of like, what if that drains the battery so much that I won't be able to start in the morning? And so I always shied away from charging things. And sometimes I even was worried about just playing music on the stereo while I was cooking dinner or whatever. So I had to always try and charge things while I was driving, while the engine was running. And I mean, certainly it worked, it was good enough, but having the solar panels has just brought me so much freedom. So now when I set up camp somewhere, even if I'm gonna stay there for a week, I know that the fridge will run no problem. I can charge my laptop when the sun's out. Charging my cameras is not a thing. You know, I can leave lights on at night when I'm cooking dinner. Stuff like that all just becomes so much more convenient. And it also takes away the worry that I won't be able to start the engine in the morning because I know the engine battery in this thing is isolated and it's not gonna run flat. So I've got a couple of videos, one about the dual battery, one about the solar panels, if you wanna check those out. But definitely solar panels, I'm gonna have them again on my next Overland vehicle. They just open up a world of possibilities, especially now that I have even more electronics with my camera gear and I am, you know, a laptop person. So yeah, solar panels is really nice to have for me. My number 2 modification that I made to this Jeep is my water tank and filtration setup that I've got. And there's a couple of reasons that it's been so amazing. And the first one is, you know, having filtration and having the UV lamp, it meant that I wasn't stressed in Africa. When water was hard to come by, northern Angola, it was really difficult. The water was not clear and I don't know if it would have made me sick to drink it. So running it through my filter and UV lamp, it just gave me confidence that I wasn't going to be sick. It also meant that I always had drinking water. When I was out in the deserts, in the Sahara, in the Namib, really remote, you know, you can't go remote like that if you don't have drinking water. So in a funny way, it basically enabled the whole expedition. I also love that the water tank is down so low, you know, all of that weight is right down on the frame and it doesn't take up interior space. So Alaska to Argentina, I just had one of those 5-gallon or 20-litre blue jugs. And it worked, it was good enough, but you know, it's quite a bit of volume and it took up space inside. For one person, it was okay. For 2, I probably would have needed 2 of them, and that's just even more space. And the weight was up on my shelf, so the weight was all the way up here, which is heavy and high up. So this water tank that I've got, there's a whole video I did on how I designed it and built it, so you can build your own. For me, I really loved it. And any vehicle I build that is designed for long-term overlanding, I will build essentially the same setup. I love too that the outlet is right here next to the kitchen. So whenever I'm cooking, I'm making coffee, boiling rice, I can just fill up a water jug and pour it straight in the pot and get it boiling. I don't even have to walk around the Jeep or anything like that. It's literally just reach across. So yeah, a water tank and filtration setup for me brought a lot of freedom and a lot of happiness for my Africa expedition. So it shouldn't come as any surprise, my #1 favorite modification of the Jeep is also the most expensive one, and it is the integrated pop-up roof that I put on this thing. So I'd actually had the Jeep for a couple of weeks totally outfitted. I'd already put the fridge in, the cabinets, the drinking water, all of that, and I was just sleeping in a ground tent. And no doubt about it, the Jeep was awesome, I loved it, but the day that I put this pop-up roof on down at Ursa Minor in San Diego, it completely changed everything. It went from just being a cool Jeep to actually being a camper. So this really isn't a Jeep anymore, this is actually a house. And that's why I love it so much. And so I will do a very detailed review video soon. It's part of the reason I've got the roof popped up. So not only does it provide a huge big bed that's warm, dry, out of the elements, and it's up off the ground, but the other thing that this roof does that I really love is it provides me interior hangout space. So this was one of my key considerations after Alaska to Argentina, and I'll show you what that looks like now as I climb up inside. You can see here I am at the back of the Jeep. I duck my head a little bit under the roll bar, and now I am inside my Jeep and I can stand up and walk around in here. So you can see I'm 6'2". My head has tons of clearance here. It's not until I walk forward towards the driver's seat before my head will actually hit the roof. And you can see I've got it unzipped right now just for filming to get enough light in here, but there is plenty of room for me to sit in here. I can read a book, I can work on my laptop. Of course, the fridge is right next to me here. So if I want to grab an apple or make a sandwich, that's easy to do. And this gives me the comfort and the peace of mind. For 3 years around Africa, trust me, when it is thumping rain, when the mosquitoes are so bad and you're worried about getting malaria for the 3rd time, having this interior space, it really brought quality of life. And that's the reason that I love this roof so much. So completely transformed my Jeep into a complete house on wheels. And that alone, in my opinion, makes it the best modification that I made to this Jeep. So there you have it. Is that what you were expecting, or are some of those items a bit different and not quite what you thought I was going to say? Obviously, this list is just my personal preferences for me and my trip and where I was going in the world. So this isn't about your vehicle and what you need. You should definitely think long and hard about that in terms of your own needs. Don't just try and copy what I've done. And to try and hammer that point home, I built this thing to drive around Africa and it was great. But if I was building a vehicle right now to drive around Iceland or Mongolia or somewhere like that, no, I'd probably do something different. It wouldn't be this. So this was purpose built. You need to purpose build yours for your trip and your needs and where you're going. Keep that in mind. Don't just copy what you see at Overland shows or don't copy what you see on YouTube. It has to be what you need. That's the most important thing. So I hope this video has been helpful. I hope it's been entertaining. If it has, hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. And there's always plenty more videos coming teaching you how to get out and overland. I know you all want to learn more about my pop-up roof. So part of the reason I've popped it right now is because I'm going to film those videos. They're coming up next. So until next time, hope you can have adventures, hope you can stay safe, and maybe I'll bump into you on the road.